And welcome to another edition of the Reverse Pivot Podcast. Just a quick shout out to our sponsors, Brian Curl Basketball. The Academy is taking enrollments now. They're off on to Taiwan to play in that tournament. Brian Curl Basketball, great things for basketball here in Southeast Queensland. Also to Chris Weir of FIT Education. You want to get your certificates and diplomas in fitness and training and coaching. Chris Weir, FIT. They are the RTO on the go. And the Big Dog Sports, severe shortage of court space all around Brisbane, all around Queensland. You looking for your own court, go to Big Dog, Ryan Stolberg and his silent partner, Benny Thompson. Now, we have with us the the winningest coach of all time in basketball. Forget the gender, but women's basketball. 9 championships, 6 with Nunawading, 1 with Perth, 1 with Canberra, 1 with Bulleen.
And 1 with Sydney.
Was it Sydney?
Yeah, but I left halfway through the season.
Well, I'm going to make that 10. Coach of the year. Now, correct, because this is Wikipedia, Tom, and I guess it's never completely right. Coach of the year in 87, 92, 2010, 2011. Correct?
Yeah, I believe so. I can't remember really.
Well, tell you what, between 87 and 2011,
that means you've won plenty. If you can't quite remember, Tom, that means that you've won a bucket load. And
I was confusing earlier. I remember I was coach of the year 1 year and equal with Robbie Cadee, and they couldn't split us on a count back. So the committee lady who was with Nunawading said, "Oh, Tom won it last year. Let's just give it to Robbie." So that was one. I remember that one, but I'm not bitter.
Mate, Bruce, who's the first international coach in the WNBA. That's a little fun fact.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, that was some time ago. What are your thoughts on the WNBA at the moment? Well, and we haven't formally introduced. We have Tom Maher. This is basketball royalty in the house today.
Well, I'm concerned. Look, old people always say, "Oh, in our day it was better." Well, it wasn't, and it shouldn't be, because if the young people of today aren't getting better, whose fault's that? It's the older people who's supposed to help them out, right? But there's basketball goes through different fads, and this thing about the lack of defense that people are playing. I mean, I accept. I watched the NBA last game. There's so many bad shots. I mean, but they can make them. So they're great shooters, and same as the WNBL, our league, the WNBL league. Nobody plays any defense, but they can shoot better than back in our day, for sure. But I just don't. I just think there's too many fads that get in the way, and I just think they'll come and go. I mean, it's going to take one coach to get into defense and win, and then they'll start a tidal wave. But it's disappointing, because I thought that was an advantage we had in Australia, but you watch the NBA and the WNBA, and they don't play any defense either.
No, I mean, that's entertainment. It's a slightly different entertainment, isn't it? And and when you look at the OKC offense, I mean, I know you're talking about defense, and I'm all in, knuckle deep with you, agree. But the floor is just 5 out, spread, durable penetration, and whatever comes from that. You look at it, I mean, it was Indiana, actually. I just could not believe how spread they were on the floor. OKC, I think from a defensive perspective, they really did put on a bit of a defensive display in a couple of the games where I think they beat Indiana, like they were the better defensive team. But it's frustrating, Tom, because you watch all these associations and stuff, and there's so many more coaches now doing individuals. and it's just all offense, like they don't ever, if you watch someone being charged $50 an hour, it's just all shooting.
Yeah, no, that's well, I know of an association that one of their coaches said, "Oh, what are we going to do defensively?" And they said, "Oh, we don't worry about defense here. Just teach them offense." I mean, well, geez, it's and there's fads like the no help thing. I think a lot of the penetration comes from, well, obviously brilliant athletes, but especially in the US and in the league there. But there's this theory on not providing help because they don't want to allow the kick out threads. Well, or you can play defense. You could just you got to fly around. You got to fly. And yeah, this I think it's lazy myself, but I don't think it'll last.
Tom, what are your impressions now that Larry Kesselman has come in, or a group has come in to not save the WNBL, but definitely going to help? Um, what is needed there? I mean, I would like to see more teams.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think the WNBL has been magnificent, and but it's and not that there hasn't been contributions from higher office and things like that. Of course, there has been, but basically the WNBL has been run by the clubs. Each club surviving on its own, and there's always stories about some teams going to drop out. Some teams drop out. And this, and it's when there's only 8 teams in the league. You lose 1-7. Oh, it's not a lot, is it? So I'd like to see surety of longevity for the clubs. So how do you do that? Well, I don't know. I suppose it comes to a degree to money, but I think the leadership. I think I don't think I've ever met Larry Kesselman. Maybe I have, but he's certainly. I don't think he remembers me from anything, but he's from what I understand, and I'm not a deep student of the NBA, the NBL, but he's been really, really successful. And I heard Andrew Gaze on the radio when I was driving to work a few weeks ago, and he was singing his praises and saying he's done this and he's done this, and and the wealth of the clubs is so much greater. And he was complaining about these people that want to get involved in a bigger share of the cake and things like that. But from what I've seen from a distance, he's been terrific for the NBL. So, boy, if he's driven enough to get into the WNBL, well, I can't be anything but good as far as I can see.
Yeah, I agree with everything. And when we were both in China at the same time, I remember Greg Stolt, who is my superior with NBA China. They were going around, boy, can you believe he bought the league for 70 million? I go, no, man. He bought it for 7 million. And still, huge capital outlay. He paid for all the television, and everybody bitched and moaned that, hey, he's got a taste of like 4 of the 10 teams. Well, hey, we wouldn't have a league.
Yeah. I just can't see how that's an issue myself,
All
of this governance.
And I think it's grown the whole thing, the Next Stars program. Hopefully that gets into we don't need it really on the women's side, because we have that many, of our Australian girls playing in the WNBA. So, but that was a great initiative. We definitely need a team. We've been trying here. We have a severe, courts, venues. We don't have them.
Yeah.
They need to get a decent venue before they even think about where can we put a women's team in the WNBL.
Yeah, it's a disaster, that, isn't it?
It really is. But you look at it, definitely club-based. Townsville is club-based, right?
Yeah.
I guess Sydney is now they're under the branch of the Kings ownership. I'm assuming. I really don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So I mean, it needs a shot in the arm. It's good basketball. I love watching it. Tom, can I get into, and this is something that where you had a huge impact on me personally, your themes, the Opal themes. First, how did you come to that?
Well, I was elected as the Opals coach, and Australia had just not so at the end of 91, and Australia had not qualified for the Barcelona Olympics. And there was a terrific doldrums about the team. And so that was midway through 91 so they didn't have another camp or anything in 91. And then the first camp was in February at the AIS. And I walked in there, and the World Championships are in Sydney in 94. So I had 18 months, right? But I had one advantage, is that I'd coached Michelle and Robin extensively. So I learnt over the years that they did a lot of the coaching, like if you've got, they knew what was going on, and whether formally or informally, they would give advice and tell players, their teammates, perhaps I think he wants it done this way or whatever. And so they did a lot of the coaching. So that was really handy. And Shelley Gorman too. She wasn't there when I coached Perth the year before, but I coached her another one. So I had three, great players. I mean, they started 1, 2, and 3 for Australia. They were super players. And then so I go to the AIS, and I always like to be early. So I'm there. Training starts at 9. I'm there. Half past 8 or something. And I'm the only one standing down on the court. And I'm waiting. And in comes Rachel Spawn, right? And it's hot, it's summer. So she just had a bodysuit on. I mean, she's a gorgeous woman. She's a superstar athlete. She's a wonderful person. She's just got special qualities. And that hit me then. I was used to working with special players, but I took it for granted. They were just there. And I thought, oh my God, like, here's this special person. And I was mindful of a previous Olympics. I'll mess up the year if I say it. But in those days, the men in the US always won gold, bronze, and silver in the 100 meters. And it was a very big thing for them then, the sprinters then, because whoever won the gold would get a big football contract. And I think that they did all that until they realised they couldn't catch, so it didn't work out so well. But they used to get big money for that. And it was very important to them. And then the three of them all qualified fastest. And one went to his semi-final. He says, I'll just get there. And the other two went with the manager. And it was something like, mixing up 1,400 hours is not 4 o'clock, So they hear the race, the semi-final, in the car, driving to the thing. Well, the guy that took off to turn up, and he won the gold medal easily. But I remember reading an article about it, and they interviewed one of the guys that did make the race. And he said, Fred or whatever his name is, he's a good bloke. And he says, he can come back from that. He said, like he can do a lot of work, a lot of community work, a lot of track and field, this and that. And he can get back and be manager again. He says that, but my shot's done. I'm gone. And I thought, my God, I don't want to be the coach that blows the players' chances. I've always been mindful that the coach is there for the, you should always aspire for personal development, but you're there to give the players the best chances of what they aspire to be, and that's special, that can make a contribution. And then I thought too, like, when you start a job, there's a mission statement, and they'll show you that the first day. And then if you ever pass by it again, it's probably on the back of the toilet door or something. It's like, they're just words on paper. And so I thought, well, and then I had the idea, well, why don't I, because another little anecdote, when I grew up, I was very mindful of people always said to me, Tom, that's not the right thing. You're not doing the right thing. But nobody ever told me what the right thing was, and I wasn't that smart, so it wasn't so easy for me as a young person. And so I thought, well, I'm going to quantify what the right thing is. I'm going to write down what success means. And I read a little bit, and then the next Opals camp, we broke into groups of, I don't know, 3 or 4 or whatever, and we had sort of little workshops on what do you want to be? You know, how do you want to portray yourself? What do you want to be as a team? And we wrote down a bunch of things off the board, and I took that and you know, I had a couple of my own ideas. And for instance, I think this is true. A non-assertive person can't be a good defender. You know, you don't have to be overly assertive or a bully, but if you're not an assertive person, you're not going to be a good defender. So I wanted you had to be assertive as part of it, and then I also wanted to make sure that, like, you know, with the first one, it was in great physical condition, but that's just words unless you say what that means. You know, unless you say what the skin fold should be, how fast you should run the beat, how strong you should be, unless you quantify that, they're just words. And so I try to explain, you know, what being assertive meant, and, you know, how to overcome adversity. Well, what does that mean? You know, and, you know, a lot of that was to do with self-talk and being in charge of your self-talk. And so I worked through that, and I was very proud of it at the top when I even did it. And it was, you know, it was a good thing to do. And but I didn't just rely on myself. I got the players' input. I got other people. I asked questions of other people. I read some books and stuff. I read one great book that everyone should read. I can't remember the name of it, but it was that was really helpful with the mind stuff. And anyway, it came out with the 7 themes. And whilst I did make some tweaks to it, I didn't change that hardly at all over the period of time. And I know, yeah. So I know.
So what these are, Tom? Yeah, obviously a group in obviously great physical condition. And I remember at that camp, I learned so much from you and Lori and, geez, I think who were the other coaches there? Played for you, ended up being in that. Kerry
Graffy.
They, you know, when you had the entire group, and you went through what are some of these behaviors. But I also recall there were 2 players that came in, and we had the scale right there in the foyer at the AIS. So it wasn't just skin fold, it was weight. And they turned around and were sent home. So
yeah, one in particular, that was just, you know, you can't, if you want to be a chef, you have to walk into that kitchen. You can't say, I want to be a chef, but I'm going to sit in front of TV. You know, you have to actually do the job, you know. So if you come into a camp like that with elite people who have been working, you know, I used to do a lot of work at Albert Park Basketball Stadium, and Robin and Michelle both worked there.
yeah.
And our fitness trainer had got, you know, they give you their diaries of what the work they've been doing. He had to pull them off. He had to say, you're doing too much. You know, you got to lighten up. It's pre-season started. They were doing 3 days. You know, they were lifting, running they'd bike to work. At lunchtime, they ran the lake, and they were lifting after work. I mean, you know, or shooting around, one of those. So, I mean, this is in in January, 1, or it wasn't. It was actually the end of the previous year. So, you know, when people are working like that, and somebody comes in ridiculously overweight and ridiculously worse than their last, it's just not tolerable.
Yeah.
So with that, you know, because Bruce is used to, and I've coached with Bruce, you know, for a while, Tom, and you know, in today's age, it's different coaching from the 80s and 90s to the 2020s, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit. But I think that one theme, it tells me it's not about sure we'll work hard on the floor, but you have to take responsibility outside of training in your home life and what you're putting in your mouth. That's your responsibility. Is that the theme that you're saying there, that because obviously you go hard, you train hard, but you can't make someone fit.
Well, you've got to no, and the big misconceptions I think is that, like, if you want to play basketball at elite level and you want to go for a long run, well, you can go for a long run, but that's got nothing to do with you being a good basketball player.
Yes.
You need repeat efforts for basketball. You need dynamic movement. So you go for a long run. Don't put that in the diary. We'll do so, but it's not specific. And that was one of the first things that I learned when I went to college. That see, when I went to college, I already knew I wanted to be a coach, but there were no professional coaches in those days. So I thought, well, I'll be a teacher, and do PE. And then I'll be coaching on the side.
Well, you're with two PE teachers here today. We both have teaching as so all three of us. I think it's a great building block as a coach, teaching.
Well, I think it is. I was, because I already knew I wanted to be a coach. Anything that sparked interest in, like, relevance to coaching, I was like, what? I'm there. I'm listening in. I'm full on here. The rest of the time I just sleep it off like every other student. But so I already knew. So that really was and I was a very late maturer, as a person. So it really, and I went to colleges, and so I travelled around Australia for 4 years before I went back to college. And I got in, not on any high school marks. I got in and I was Mr. 51%. That was all I needed. And I got in because they liked that I'd travelled around and lived on my own and stuff, or with the mate I travelled with. And they thought that was a sign of maturity, that because PE was very trendy in those days. I don't know if maybe it still is, but they'd get 6,000 applications from that for 60 spots,
Correct.
And so that's what they get in, and that was invaluable to me, because I picked up a few things that really helped me. It taught me a lot about the specificity was the first word I learned.
Well, but imparting knowledge is a gift. Like it's like some people just don't have that ability to impart knowledge, and I know that how I coached in 1990 to how I coach today is different. So it's still you still got the fundamentals there, but it's that continuous improvement and adjust to the audience in front of you, and I think teaching gives you that ability.
Yeah, I don't think I was much of a teacher. I mean, I taught at a zoo. They've bulldozed it now. But it was a school where it was 80% Greek, was in Oakley, and it was a school where there was no school uniforms. You could smoke.
No way.
Kids all had their smokes in there. You couldn't smoke inside the room. That's lunchtime stuff. And you could swear as long as you weren't swearing at somebody, So it was, but so many kids did well at that place, and I don't know that they would have done well everywhere else. But I was busy. I spent 10 years teaching, kind of used that 10 years to build my basketball acumen up. So I worked hard on being a basketball coach, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I want to continue on with this, with sharing with the listeners. So a group in obviously great physical condition, a group that plays with relentless persistence. Can you give us an example, or how would you define that?
Well, my wife was persistent,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I read about persistence in some book, and I used to give myself little casual, like little sort of tests. So I remember one year I thought, this next year I'm going to really work on what I think about rebounding. I'm really going to. So every laying on the beach or something, it might pop in my head and I might think about it, or I'd be on the lookout for something. How did that person get that rebound? Or why did that person miss that block out? Or that took me. That was a great little exercise. But I used to do things like that, and one of those things was persistent. What's it mean? To be persistent, and it's a lot to do with how you think. really super persistent. But you think there's different ways. Some people think really widely, and some people are tunnel vision. And Robin was like XZ missile, what she wanted to do. And so, yeah, I had that experience of living with somebody who was like that, because I was never great at anything myself. So I always used to try to learn from the great players and that, and how they think and that. And they're just themselves. They're just who they are. There's no science to that. They're just who they are. And so I try to find things out. And
I find that if you really can't play with relentless persistence if you're not in obviously great physical condition.
No.
And that feeds, all these kind of merge together, because the next one is a group that can handle adversity. And I think that's after being with you and I reflected back on my coaching behavior, I didn't handle adversity well. Right?
Really?
I would
I would have said that.
I had a bad, it's something that I regret, my behavior towards referees, because they're in.
Yeah, I regret that. I was asked that the other day, did I regret? And I said my behavior towards referees.
Yeah.
I wish I had laid off. But anyway, in those days, everybody did it. You'd be out of place now.
But it wasn't until, I realized they're in it for the same reason that you and I are, that the players are. They love it.
Yeah.
Right? For the most part. I mean, I never came across a referee that, there's no black whistle like China, where, you're going to win that game. But being an assertive, handling adversity, being assertive. One of the things that I remember from that meeting back in '96, you're your own best coach. You're your own best manager. You're your own best dietitian, right? Because you're not going to achieve wherever it is that you aspire to be if you're relying on somebody to tell you, what to do,
Absolutely.
how to do it, when to do it. And I looked at that again, Robin, Michelle, Sandy, when she's of that spore, and all of them, Trish Fallon, there was a collectiveness of being assertive, and they looked out after one another. And now, the next thing is a flexible team. When we spoke with Sandy and when we did Brian just the last week, Gorgon, positionless basketball.
Yeah.
And, that's really where it's going. The teams that really want to enjoy success, they have to be well-rounded players that can, bigs that can defend on the perimeter, smalls that can post, bigs that can handle the ball with vision and make good decisions. I think that was way ahead of its time.
Yeah. I don't know where but that just appeared to me that that's just the way you have to play. I think also Charles Barkley said something that I picked up on when he was asked, what position is he? He says, I'm not a position. I'm not a guard, forward, or center. I'm a basketball player. I thought that was pretty wise,
Yeah.
I love Charles. He comes out with a lot of good stuff, he plays a bit. Yeah, he does. So we're after a flexible team is a great defensive team, and this will be an interesting your insight, Tom, please, because obviously we started this about you're concerned about defense being played in today's game, but a great defensive team, and that's definitely something. As a young guy watching the Opals come on, like they played D.
Yeah. Well, a big help for that was that when I coached at Nunawading, I had Shelley, Gorman, and Timsy and Robin in my team. And then I was a cleaner at that time. When I was the first year I came back from Gove, where I was living up in the Territory, I kept bugging Lindsay to give me a job. And Paul Frank was the cleaner there, and he was going off to a scholarship into a college. And Lindsay walked up to me this one day and says, "You still want a job?" And I said, "Yeah." I was working. I was forklift driver at the time, I think. And he said, and hopeless, but he said, do you want a job? And he says, as a cleaner. And I said, well, I cleaned. I had a contract to clean the hotel and go for a year. So I was capable of a cleaner. And so I took the job, and the stadium was closed during school holidays. And I had a key. And I walked in to the stadium, and the Australian team, the Australian squad were training with Lindsay. And what was the guy's name? He coached at LSU.
Dale Brown.
Who was it?
Dale Brown.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And he was really trying to sell, Lindsay was, you could sell him on offense before you could sell him on defense, right? But he was trying to sell to the team and run jumps. And I'm standing there as a young coach. I'd never seen this before. And he says, oh, this is a new big thing and all this. But the Australian team were never going to take it on, but I took it on. And so I started with that, and then I learned running traps and I then faking it and all that. But by the 2000 Olympics, I thought it was a beautiful thing what we could do defensively. But what I'm saying is I didn't just have 2 camps to get it in. I had all those years as players in a team, and then those players could teach the other players that weren't in the team, as I would drill them, but they would teach it to them, and which I discovered. And it was a great thing. You really, my theory is this: is that Australia isn't big enough to beat the superpowers, although Russia's gone to the doghouse now. But I don't know how they are the men, but the women have just been terrible. But I felt that we had to have the attitude of being a club team. So I'm not assuming your club coach is going to work on your feet. I'm not assuming that your club coach is going to work on blocking out or full frame, whatever. I'm going to teach it that way. And so what I did is I would, and the coaches, everybody cooperated. So I would fly around, say on a Monday, early in the week or Tuesday, and do some, clinics with, 3 or 4 people, and that were either in the team or on the verge. And that really helped. That was a really helping thing. It was more than just meeting for 3 camps a year and then going off and playing, the big teams.
I hope you don't mind, man. Because I still use the stuff. I'm over here coaching year 10s. The triangle slides, the stunt hedging. You hedge like you're going to run and jump, recover back.
Well, you told me that.
Right.
I went to, you'll know his name. I went to UNLV when they were really big.
Jerry.
When they were trying to they were running the game and just shooting it real quick. Is that when you were there? Is that the same time?
Well, they had running jumps. And Tark had myself.
Tarkian,
in his office. Give us like an hour. And I said to him, well, I said, we use running jumps. He said, but you know what? And then the other team, the players got better at handling it. And then I said, okay, we'll go running traps. And that killed them for a while. Running jumps, when it started, that killed them. But then the players got better at it. I said, he says, we do it 1 in 10. We just faked the other 9. I was like, of course, But so I didn't have a set rule like that, but I just said, you've got to have fakes and you've got to, trust yourself, So Robin had this thing. I said to her, how come you can, she could turn her player around and steal the ball from behind and things like that in the clutch. I said, can you do that? Like, because I wanted to know, so maybe I could teach it. And she says, the other players, they just don't gamble enough. Well, you could knock me over. I thought, I couldn't believe that. I thought it'd be some scientific thing, but you've got to know when to go, don't you?
Oh, I mean, as a coach though, isn't it? I mean, and even at the professional level, you see games in the NBL, WNBL, and they're just playing man to man, court to court, and it's just who can outscore someone.
Yeah,
Where the fun of the game for me as a coach is it's like a game of chess. You know, we'll every possession you can do something.
yeah,
You can fake a run and jump, or you can trap, or whatever. From an out of bounds play, you do, and that's what I love. You can disrupt this game, and it's much more fun. I think that's me.
yeah, absolutely.
You know, and but we had fantastic chat with Michelle and Sandy, and obviously their praise of the perform of your themes, and they're still using it in some capacity now with the opals, right? And you know, Sandy, massive fan. And how does that how does that mean for you from when you started this in the early 90s to see we're in 2025? And I just think like the opal culture has been there a lot longer than the boomers culture. Would you agree?
Uh, I don't know enough about the boomers. Like, um, I was just like an Australian fan, but I was
Yeah,
never like studying them and scouting them, and I
sure.
mean, now I don't even know their names, but certainly if there's a game I'm watching, I'm there, for sure. I would love to watch Australia play, but
Because our opals have batted above their weight division for a long time.
yeah, I do remember, and I believe this is true. When we first started winning games, um, like in Australia wasn't hopeless before I got there, by no means,
Yes,
And but when we started getting really good and started, you know, beating France and Russia and things like that, it was almost people didn't want to have another competitor. They didn't want to have another team that could beat them, and it was really really dirty, really dirty. And then they just got used to us being around, and it just went away. But it was, some of the girls took some big shots. They just didn't. People didn't want to have to deal with this upstart.
but our women, like Australian women basketball, like there's a bucket load of them in the WNBA. You know, Sandy and Michelle's and Robin's careers, ridiculous achievements. Why is that? Why is this? You know, we only got a population of 25 million people. How are we competing with these big countries?
Well, we have thought about that. For a start, it's quite acceptable in Australia for taxpayers' money to go towards sport.
Yep.
Um, it's also sports are a type of entertainment that Australia is really into. Okay, you get, especially if you're a boy, um, that they say that boys at school, if they're good academically or they're good at sport, don't get bullied. That's not so much the case with girls, but that's the case with boys. So they say, but I read it somewhere, I heard it on TV or something. But I think that's probably right. If you've got some sort of prestige. But I don't know that they've. I think that just see in China, half their population doesn't play sport.
Yeah.
They could have the greatest point guard in the world. He's play on a field, the North 40 or something. It's like, so uh, so they don't get use of all the population. But I think a really big thing for basketball is that in Melbourne, say Victoria, if there's 10 super promising athletes, 8 of them go to the AFL, boys, 7, 6, whatever, but more than their fair share. Whereas we get that with girls basketball. We get a lot of really good talent try basketball. So,
Right.
and I think we get basketball does well out of the talent pool.
The last one, a we group. So all
Yes.
these things make up the culture
Yeah,
of the Opals. And what I found, I mean, that group was special, Nate. Robin, Michelle, Sporn. We brought Lauren Jackson in. I think she was 16.
Yeah.
Like, wow, like this is something special. But the effort that they all made to get to know, genuinely get to know and genuinely care about one another. And this is one of the things when we coached last, Steve and I, about, hey, we got everything in place, defense, offense, our rules. Now we got to, we got to get tight. We got to show concern for one another. Once we get that, then we're going to really reach our potential. And I'm just, you can't get anywhere if you're not. And I don't know if you've had any players that, no, I'm going my way. Obviously not with the Opals, but how about with, the club team, not a
Well, look, when I coached Nunawading, I walked into a team that had Sharon Deacon and Robin Gull. Now, he became my wife, but those both players were already in the Australian team. They were starters with the Australian team. Sharon was the three. Now, Sharon was a phenomenal player and would have played, for the Opals for years and years and years. But she had blew her knee out, and then she got diabetes as a result, and then got pregnant. And then, so she came back. She was never the superstar that she was. But anyway, so I had two starting Australian players in the team. So I just had to have good, loyal soldiers around them. So, I mean, I used to have in my book, I used to carry a transfer request in it, So, I mean, nobody ever, but I was, you don't like it, here you go, fill it in, see you later, because I had the basis. And then when Tinsy and Shelley come on, and Robin, I had the starting 1, 2, 3. So we just needed good, loyal soldiers to surround them, and to be, honest citizens and, do their best. We didn't need, we didn't have to put up with a talented person that was trouble. So it was just, so I just thought it was great coaching, but, I learned later on.
That is smart coaching. You surround yourself with great players.
Was, but I thought I was just such a great coach. I could teach anybody to be a valuable member of the team. But I learned after shifting that wasn't quite the case. So that was a valuable lesson to me.
Tommy, you're influenced coaching by many. You study, and is there any one coach that really gave you, motivated you to become a coach?
Not to become a coach, but Lute Olsen, clearly thought that I had something, and because he thought that, I was emboldened, if you like, that I could, and I was never one to lack confidence, but like I was quite happy to compete,
Yeah.
And I know, when you do those in China, I did a personality test, when you answer 150,000 questions and they come up with it,
You're a Mozzie, or you're some sort of personality after you've done the questions.
No, all about personality, and Robin read mine before it, and she says, "My God, I said, this person has the ability to do their best, and they have the ability to get over a loss now quickly." And I was aware that I could, I'd be disappointed, but I wasn't devastated by it the next day, like I move on, or so that was I had other things that were challenges to me, but that was a good thing for me because it helped. And I had this rule that I stole of somebody, that you can sulk until midnight, and after midnight, you've let the game go. So I stole that.
I think that's a trait of really great athletes when you think about it. They just, they take, it's not about winning, it's at how you handle loss. And great people or great players go, okay, how do I learn from why we lost last night? Oh, I missed my free throws. Okay, I'm back in the gym today shooting more free throws, or, they've just got that mentality to, hey, we lost, but I'm not gonna, kick the dirt. You just see because of the NBA and everything you see on TV, you just see these young kids animated to the referees and the parents on the sidelines, and it just does my head in
Yeah.
watching some of that. And can we reverse pivot is our name? Can we reverse pivot because we're talking about coaching, and you've got this academy with Michelle. Can you tell us about how that started and what it means to you today?
And when I came back from my last stint in China, she asked me if I'd like to do some work. I said, sure. And it is clear, it is easily, overwhelmingly the best academy I've ever witnessed. Right, the professional, every kid's dressed exactly the same way. The signage is great. Michelle takes one court for half an hour, and then we swap over. And I take the other court. And so Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays she has the better kids, so the 12s and the 14s, and then Thursday and Friday she has the little tackers that are hopefully build up to go in there, and we get kids at different levels, and we're mindful that we've had some kids that have some personality issues,
Yep.
and kids that are all like coming, all their shoulders are humped and all this, and now they run in, and so we're mindful of trying to find ways to help. And with the winning thing, we don't. I mean, you've got to teach kids how to stand in line. You've got to teach them how to make the ball safe. You've got to tell them how to use their voice. You can't be, if you're not assertive, you won't use your voice, you won't be able to communicate. You can't say switch, it's not going to get it done. So you've got to say switch, you've got to be able to communicate. So we try to teach them how to use their voice. My wife just walked in and the dog's gone crazy. But we try to teach them all things like that. It's so rewarding. It's the kids are so great.
How many kids?
Their parents are invested. It costs a bit of money.
How many kids in the academy do you actually?
I'd have more. She doesn't like more than 12 on a court.
Okay.
Right. So I mean, if you go 16, you can play 4 and 4 rather than 3 on 3 at both ends. But I'm also with some things of course moving your feet for sure, but I'm a big on you mentioned before about individual training. I don't want indies with one person. I saw a session of back. This is going way back. ITC, and I watched I won't big this up, but I'll say at least 20 minutes of 3-0, like 3-0 motion offense.
Oh, God.
And the coach was driving to the airport after. He said, "Oh, what do you think?" And I said, "I thought it was child abuse." I mean, that's 3-0. I mean, it's 3-on-3, mate. You got to learn how to do it in a competitive environment. So, we try to get a good mix of that, and we try to teach the kids little things,
Yeah, but you're teaching them discipline. I mean, I just take that point of learning to stand in a straight line. Now,
when they try out for VC, they won't be the kid that's looking at the floor or spinning the ball on their finger or throwing the ball around when the coach is talking. They won't be that kid. When the coach get a partner, they'll get a partner. They won't just stand there waiting for somebody to mother them. I don't do it. I'm not your mother. get a partner. So I'll wait, you know. But
Yeah.
it's and with winning, I'll make this point. We teach that winning's super, super important. But what's winning? Now, one way you can win is on the scoreboard. Another way you can win is making good passes. Another way you can win is showing that you get knocked down, but you just jump straight back up. I like the kids who, when they hit the floor, to bounce back, you know, like some of those AFL players that
That's
pick.
such a good point, Tom.
Yeah.
That's
And,
I
and
love it. I love
you know,
it.
well, for a start, you're demonstrating your teammates. You've got a degree of positive toughness, you know, and that, you know, another way is using your voice. That's winning. You know, there's 1,000 ways to win. If you focus on one single way to win, which is a scoreboard, you're a loser. You're going to lose in so many other ways. That's because that's not going to get you there again. You know, a winning D grade when you're under 10 isn't going to win the NBL championship when you're 30. You know, you got to win lots and lots and lots of ways, and
I
you've got
like
to learn
that.
how to.
I really do. That's
Yeah.
Me too, man. Tommy, can I? So you've established success. We got with the Opals, our first medal ever, '96. You won a bronze. 2000, you win silver. Now you've gone from there to New Zealand, correct?
Yeah.
It's their national team, and then to Great Britain, right, to England.
Well, one experience that was. I mean, Great Britain was super professional. New Zealand didn't have a program.
No.
And they appointed Cary Graff, and I was overseas in the WNBA, and I got fired and came back, and Graffy got a WNBA gig, and so she couldn't do the New Zealand job, and so they asked me. So I went to New Zealand for 3 days for a camp, and then a bit later on, we played some games against, I can't remember, Korea, I think, and somebody else. And we had a domestic team. There were some players that were great players because they played in Europe, you know. Well, one played in Australia, one played in Europe, so they were good players. And there was a former netball player who was really a basketball player, but she got paid for netball over there. And she was big and strong, Donna Lofthagen. She was a great player. And she's as strong as two men and could rebound. But anyway, go there and we play that tournament, and then we go to Europe for 4 weeks before the Olympics. So what programming? So, and then I find out that one of the guys on the sports commission in New Zealand resigned in protest that New Zealand was sending a women's basketball team, because in the last 4 years they'd only played 4 games, 2 to qualify against Australia and 2 to qualify against Australia, right? But because Australia won the Worlds, New Zealand got to go to that Olympics. So, so we go there, and Mike McHugh was my assistant coach, and he couldn't come for the first couple of weeks or week and a half, and we lost some games. And then he turned up, and all of a sudden, we just went from tournament to tournament. We played a lot of games, and we beat Germany. And all of a sudden, it's like, and he said, "Geez, things have come good since I arrived, haven't they?" You know. So, but anyway, we started with some games. We were ranked. I think it was in the 120s. I think it was like 123 in the world, because in those days, figured that they ranked you all the way back like 150 or something.
right.
And we finished up late. We was 1 3-point shot away from going to the Final Four. So, but Chris Peter, but that was an incredible experience. And then I went back to China, and then no, I didn't. I went back to China. I got the China
New
shot,
Zealand,
and then I
Great
got
Britain,
Great
China, or other way around?
I did
2 stints in China.
Australia, New Zealand. Then I did the Sydney Home Olympics, and then I did the Beijing Home Olympics in 2008, and then I did the London Home Olympics in 2012. So I got 3 Home Olympics. That was pretty good, pretty neat, as they say.
So you had six Olympics you've been to, is that correct? 6?
Well, I've been to 8, but 2 of them I was a spectator.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I mean, the Olympics is just the pinnacle, isn't it? Really, but what is that like for people like me and a lot of coaches listening here who are never going to go to the Olympics? What is that like for
Well, you
you?
should go to the Olympics.
Well, they're coming 2032 here in
Yeah,
Brizzy,
well,
so
get there. It's magical. What's it like? For me, to tell you the truth, it was a basketball tournament surrounded by a lot of other sporting tournaments.
okay, yes,
So, I mean, I'm big into scouting. I pride myself. I think I'm a great scout, and I'm big into it. And I scout. When I scout a team, I scout every single shot and any deep catches and every single penetration, and then I get the tape and work the plays out. And any, like if somebody sulks or somebody stops. We played Magic Paula for Brazil at the German World Championships in '98, and she's such a big hero over in Brazil. And women's basketball was so big then that she didn't get a call. She would stomp her feet and look at the referee. So we had a rule that every time she stopped, it was an automatic fast break. Just play 5-on-4, just go straight to the hole. Well, after a while, the players were looking at her and say, because nobody ever said do it, don't do it. But we ran over them that game. That was, but so little things like that I try to scout. But I'm scouting or watching just the entire.
so you're in amongst it. You're a spectator. You're working. It's everything, but I can just.
I don't think I got to go to too many other events. I mean, at Sydney Olympics, I went to track and field a couple of times. I
Yeah.
went to the men's basketball a couple of times. I'm sure I'd go to the basketball to see the men play.
Yeah.
But I can't think of. I didn't go to another event in London. I didn't go to another event in Beijing other than the basketball. So you're just busy for me. You just
Well,
you're busy.
basketball goes virtually the whole Olympic
Goes
Games.
the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So other sports finish on the first day. They get to hang around the village.
Yeah. Right.
China's unique, Tom. I mean, what I saw on the men's side, I'm sure it's the same. They went overtraining.
Yeah. Right.
They expect you to do 2-a-days with them.
Yeah. Well, I think my theory is they've got this like long march attitude. Look, you train for 2 hours a day? Great, we'll train for 4 hours a day. Well, when I got there, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how the players train, because then I find out they're told to turn up for train at 10, but they don't know when training's going to finish.
That's right.
So they're conserving their energy all the time. They don't do anything. Everything's a rhythmical, I call two-speed. You play basketball slow or fast, not rhythmically. And so and then I remember Chen Nan, superstar, right, playing 1-on-1 because we had great facilities. And so these two players, her and one other player. So Chen Nan took a bit of time to become the champion she was. And they start playing 1-on-1. She's at the top of the key. She makes a bit of a step and shoots the long two. And then they both let the ball roll on the floor. I'd lost it. I just went crazy, And then I had all this trouble with them. Like they would not break out of a jog. So anyway, we got better and better, and then we that was a fantastic result for us. We come fourth. We hadn't beaten the Czech Republic. We played them 11 times, but that the 11th time was against their junior team with 2 of their senior players. And so we won that one. But the senior team, we played them in the 4 years on the build-up. We played them 10 times and lost every one, and got to the Olympics and we beat them by double figures, So that was a great result for us. We come fourth, and it was such a big deal because the manager of the boss of the CEO of basketball over there is like the CEO of Broken Hill. It's like it's a big job. It's not just not like Australia. And
is that Yao? Is that Yao Ming?
No, that's Yao Ming now, but it wasn't then.
It wasn't that. Okay.
No, it was Mr. Lee, and he was a wonderful man. And anyway, he was moved to tears when he came forth. It was just super.
It must have taken something though to change, because I saw it. The national team would stay at the NBA school, and I remember we had Jim Boylan out. Hey, we get a chance. He was doing clinics, and we have a chance to watch the national team train. We have like 30 minutes. Let's watch what's going on. And they did 5-man weave, shitty, sloppy, balls flying. No one broke out of a jog.
No,
Had to leave. That was 30 minutes.
I know. It's just child abuse,
Well,
human abuse.
what they do get conditioned is to, when do I go hard?
No, well,
Right?
it was so hard to change that. But you know what? After that, I got the job at Great Britain. So super manager there. He was an Australian guy. He was a hockey coach, actually. And super professional, as good as you get. And really professional program for a domestic league players, you know.
Yeah, right.
We had a couple play in Europe, and we had an Australian import who was, she was half English, not anything, but she learned to play in Australia, so she was great. Natalie Hughes. And so we put together this team, and the closest we got was we went to double overtime against France, who won the silver medal. And both times the point guard there knocked in a 3 on the buzzer to go into overtime and then to beat us. That was not a pleasant memory for me. But anyway, you lose some too.
Do you know, were you, was Chris Finch the head coach of the men then?
I believe he was, yeah.
Because that was in London, was it not?
Yes, but they were totally separate to us. They trained differently, totally different program. We had a full-time program, like for 4 months, the European summer. So we'd go 2 a day, 1 a day, day off. So we're an hour out of London. So, you know, you do your 1 a day in the morning. So you had a whole day and a half off to go up to London or whatever. So I and the assistant coach used to go up there. And the manager knew that I liked food. So he took us to some wonderful restaurants. And that was good living. But it was very professional, very good. Well, it didn't have anywhere like the depth of player that Australia has. But they were good.
Now, other than Michelle's academy, and that's I wanted one question for you there. Is there any criterion to get in?
No, you just apply. And then Michelle gives you a tryout, like come to one of our sessions, or they start younger, 6, 7, and they go into I call it the run amok sessions on Thursday and Friday, but no, they're not. They're really well managed. But they're little kids doing little things and learning how to compete in that. And then the better ones from about 8 come up to the under 12 program. And we get some, you know, VC1 kids. We get some, most of the kids are VC standard, but they might be in the 4th or 5th, you know. But they're, we've got a young CC. We've got a couple of good girls. We've got a couple of good boys. But little CC, she's like, I think she turns 9 this year. She could play under 12s already, like ones. She's really great. But so we get a variety of kids, but it's you know, Michelle's she does all the work. I just coach. So she's good at pairing kids together, that, you know, putting groups together, and, you know, and we're good at, like, this kid's not touching the ball, you know, you better take the ball out of bounds, or you better bring the ball up, you know. And we have everybody. Yeah. There's no positions. Everybody plays everywhere, you know. And so, you know, and we try to teach them how to handle, like with handling, try to teach them, like, well, what if there's a guy pressing you and they're faster than you? Or what if they're going to trap you? What are you going to do, right? Because what I see in juniors is that there's too much reliance on a pattern, you know, like they're going to zone press, which is it's ubiquitous in Victoria. You know that they call it the arrow press. I used to call it a 1-2-1-1 back in the old days. But they all do that. And they trap, and they rely. They take the ball above their head. You know, their target, and they rely on the pattern that the coach wants them to play. Which, you know, when they're only 12s, it's not such a good thing. So I teach the Michelle Timms method of head down, bum up. You know, but I teach them how to. Okay, where's the gap? And things like that, and how do you create a gap, right? So, you know, if there's no, you know, I can't the detail, but if, you know, and then how to stop, start, and not get, you know, herky jerky, you know, but getting, you know, when we teach handling, we do tremendous amount of work on getting the handler to put the defender on his back or her back, you know, how to is it a fast break? Or is it court? So are you going to change your speeds or are you going to fast break? Because the kids, when you see them play, like on a Friday night, if they beat their man, they'll just plummet into the 4 other defenders who are waiting for them in the key. You know, it's like a race to the baseline. So that's not a fast break just because you beat your man. So, you know, it's not just about this is a left-hand dribble and this is a crossover dribble and this is a behind-the-back dribble. We try to teach all the scenarios.
I mean, it's the hardest. Coaching that age group is where you, as a coach, your skills. I mean, it's enjoyable, but I think it's technically the hardest thing to do. If you've got elite athletes, they already come to the party with, and that's where your themes are. You know, your elite athletes strive on that sort of stuff, you know, the team, the culture, and do anything, but you don't have to teach them how to dribble the ball left hand because they already can. That's the hardest thing to do, just teach young kids, but it's also rewarding, right?
Yeah, well, I've never been a play guy. I've always been a technique guy.
Yeah, right.
And when I went to college, and I thank God I attended that day, but I did biomechanics, which you had to do, and failed it. But in the first 3 questions, the first 3 questions were all about human movement, and there was like 84 principles of human movement. I knew them by heart because that was the rest of it was all mass crap. You know, I was like, when am I going to use this? So the first question I got 15 out of 15. The second question I got 15 out of 15. The third question he gave me 17 out of 15. It was the analysis of a high jump. I had 47 out of the first 3 questions and failed. I didn't get another point because it was all, you know, mathematics and graphs and stuff. But it was still enough because it was over 45. I got it. I didn't have to repeat. But those things stayed with me. And I mean, I could look at somebody swinging a golf club and not know anything about golf, but I could say about their base of support, you know, their timing and things like that, just from learning this. They stayed with me. And I was always prone to the technique. And so I've always, like, I mean, today, I think it's a good thing that what Bruce said before about no positions, you know, learn how to be everything. Okay, you might be a bit more of this, but you need to be you need to be a basketball player. And so there's a lot of switching. They can't switch technically, you know. It's just a mess until you get back to one-on-one again, you know.
Yes.
I mean, you know, that to me is not good enough. I want to know how to teach it. I want to know how it should be done, you know. And I want to, so, you know, I've always been, you know, that players have always been secondary to me.
Okay. So if you we have coaches we know listen to this podcast, if you had a room of coaches sitting in front of you, what sort of message would you give them when they're coaching juniors? Like what do you think is something you've already said technique? Is there any other take-home messages you want to share?
Well, I fumbled upon this, I don't know how I come to it, but when I come to it, I saw how powerful it was. I never deviated. You've got to tell the truth. No gimmicks, no motivational things. You might tell somebody something that's motivational, but that is because it's the truth. You don't lie to players, you know, ever. And, you know,
That's it. I mean, I see too much of the people being, you know, everyone thinks they're going to make the NBA or WNBA, and the reality is That's like you got a better chance being an astronaut.
Yeah,
And I think there's a bit of that false hope. Bruce and I talk about this a lot with we see individual coaches, doing these individuals that these parents are paying a lot of money for, and I think it's all a lot of it's just gimmicky, and the coaches aren't there's no criteria. Do you know what I mean?
I know it's a lot of it's gimmick. Yeah, and you see, like it's a bit of triage. If you see like development coaching, now it might be a really great thing to work on at home, bouncing a tennis ball and bouncing a basketball at the same time. That may have really good things. I've never used it, but I'm sure it's a good idea. But not when you've got an hour. You know, you've got an hour. You know,
Yes.
get to the grist of it, and don't spend. You know, when I coached at Nunawading, you had to be 10 minutes early to do whatever stretches you wanted to do. Now, nobody was 10 minutes early. They were always 20 minutes early, but they did all that. When it was time to train, we were into it,
Yes.
they were expected to have done whatever they need to do, So, and they all did. They were very conscientious. But the other thing I'd say, it's a little bugbear of mine, is that, and I understand people that argue against this, but I see a VC under 12 fours or under 12 fives, it might be. There's one kid gets 30 seconds. I mean, that's just child abuse. I just hate that, But I
I
just think,
agree. I agree. I mean, yes, we're trying to teach them to win, but at the end of the day, no one remembers if you won the under 12, championship in
yeah,
1995. You know what I mean? Like, it's the love of the game and the enjoyment. I love
incorporate
that.
both. I'm certainly not saying everybody should play equal time. That's ridiculous, right? The players would evolve against that anyway. That is ridiculous. But I'm saying a reasonable amount. And coaches have asked me when I've been in the, head coach thing, at Bulleen and at Sydney Comets, what's a reasonable amount of time? Okay, well, that's not an answer for that. It's got to be fitting the circumstances, fitting the player. But I said, if I, in a 4 10-minute quarters, I'd think if I had to, had to absolutely give you a thing, I'd say 8 minutes. It's a so it's not equal with your best player, but it's something. And they feel part of the team, and it breaks my heart when I see kids sit down like that.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
We've
and
had this discussion a few times, Steve and I, about these guys doing individuals. And man, there should be an accreditation. There's got to be that you're competent,
yeah,
like you know what you're teaching. There's an assessment. How many free throws can you make out of, 2 at a time out of 10?
yeah,
Something is being recorded so it can be measured. And I'm a big believer. Billy Tomlinson said this to me, and it was from Brett Brown. If we're going to do, and I'm with you, I'd rather do small groups.
yeah,
But we work on this, and now you gamify it.
yeah,
And that was Brett's word, that we will work on. Now we got to put it to practice,
yeah.
right, in a real setting. And I look and go through social media, all the dribbling. Man, there's a purpose to dribble, right? Not bouncing around and all.
No, it's funny, isn't it? When I walk into the stadium, I see guys taking it behind their back, through the legs,
they're gone nowhere.
Well, they're going nowhere, but that can be fun, and it can be a little bit of exercise, but it's not basketball. It's having fun at basketball. It's as a medium, basketball's a medium, but it's got nothing to do with getting better. In fact, a lot of that stuff's speed training. Certainly with your intellect. Well, I'll play 1-on-1 with a 14-second shot clock or something. It's like, God,
one-on-one with no dribble. Like one of the things that Brian's big at with his academy, use your jab step, get separation.
That's a big, hard thing to teach the kids, because defensively the kids are weak compared to offense. So when the defender hands the ball, they just pull through. I said, that's not going to work. You got to learn. You got to I teach, and some of the stuff, the new age stuff. Look, yeah, maybe, but if you teach it well, I guess it'll work really well. But I go to the basics: jab step, up fake, or rocker step. If you want to learn something else, well, but that pretty much covers it, I think.
Yeah. We have a section and this is really all for coaches, players. Great opportunity to pick your brain again, Tom. But we have a little section called Coach's Corner. And if you're willing, we'd love to get you back on. We'll have something real specific. If it's defensively, the side pick and roll, how you go about defending it, or middle pick and roll, how you do it. Would you be willing?
Absolutely.
Oh, you're a good man. Now,
You are.
before we tie this thing into a bow, who else is picking your brain? Who else? I mean, you're such an asset to basketball. Michelle, obviously, but
Michelle and I talk because we do the only thing I do of an academic nature is help her with the programming. Like what are we going to teach this term? We teach 8 weeks of the term, not the first week and not the last week, and we do it that every term. And then when there's school holidays, we do a 3-day camp for from 10 to 1, 3 days a week. But so I help with the programming, and but no, it's funny that I think when you get to a certain age, I think people think you're done, or I don't know. See, I thought one advantage that I had, I looked around, I thought I was prepared to ask the stupid question, But when you do a clinic and you have a talk and say, well, any questions? You might get one, no questions. Okay. And you walk out and there's 50 people come, when you ask a question, so what if I was never bothered about saying something stupid, I was used to it. So I just found that helped me asking the question. I'd go up to when I had a book from Bob Knight on Hints on Defense, the famous book, and I asked like Lindsay and Ray Tomlinson and what's his name? Anyway, and I could see they didn't really know it, So in those days, the American imports were the new people in town. I'd go up to the imports and say, do you know what this is? And you go, oh, not really, but you know what? Our coach used to do that sometimes in practice. And then I got to figure it out. One guy said that to me, and he explained what it was, and I worked it out because wasn't hidden in Chinese. But I was prepared to go up to people and ask them questions. And I don't know. I can't think of the last time somebody asked me a basketball question. Oh, that was one. Yeah.
Jesus.
Well,
I remember this. We were talking, and I was like, "Where I trapped." We with the Giants, we ran a 1-2-2, and we'd always try to trap just over half court. And you asked the question, why limit it? Why just there? Why not back here? And I had to think, like, well, why not? You know what I mean? And the whole use of fakes. Fake your trap, stunt. You're slowing up the clock. You're eating away their shot clock.
You're disrupting. And it's that makes a difference per possession. Just does my head in watching basketball where they're just playing quarter court man to man and see you can outscore them. Like you can do so many things. Run and jump is awesome, and when the players can do it really without you even like they see the opportunity and they do it themselves. That's when you're starting to know they start to understand things like run and jumps and traps. When you don't have to actually, they know, like the good players just know, hey, there's an opportunity, we got to do it.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's hard to scout against, isn't it?
Motion trap. A motion trap. Paragraph used to say it's a motion trap, meaning like motion offense. It's just all of a sudden here's a chance, bang,
Yeah.
But, Timsy was great at that. Superb.
I so enjoyed chatting to Michelle on our pod and Sandy. Bruce thinks that I have a crush on both of them, and he's probably right. But they were brilliant, but their respect of you, Tom, was incredible. Like they both spoke so highly of working with you, and when they were players, and now obviously Michelle with the academy. So, your coaching pedigree is just phenomenal, and I really appreciate your time with Bruce and I today.
No worries. Anytime.
We're tying this into a bow, but before we do, thank you. By the way, we didn't get this mentioned. You're 2021 FIBA Hall of Fame inductee. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Oh, that was wonderful.
4 years.
That was wonderful.
You've been a big help to us. I always learn something speaking to you, Tom Maher. I really appreciate it. We will get you back on for a Coach's Corner segment.
No worries.
Thanks very much.
Give my love to Robin.
I will.
Don't go changing.
No.
See ya.
See ya.